Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can make vintage loops like these. In FL Studio using nothing but native FL Studio sounds and native FL Studio plugins. I'm going to get right into it. I'm not going to talk your ear off too much. Hopefully this is going to be a quick video and hopefully you find this very helpful. So the first thing I did here is I brought my tempo down to 76. Now, I think a good range for vintage sounding loops like these is going to be between 70 and 85. Then I got into the piano. So the piano here is a direct wave. If I bring this up for you right now, this is the piano. The way you can find the piano in FL Studio, as long as you have, I do believe, Producer Edition and above. I could be wrong, but the Producer Edition and above, you have these in your packs. So you go to packs, you'll go to instruments, and then you'll go to keyboards, and then you should have electric right here. And it's not the best sounding electric piano, but it's not the worst. And once you add your effects to it, then you actually kind of it sounds a lot better. And I didn't even add very many effects. I just added some reverb and some EQ. But I'll break down these chords for you. Now, I know you're probably seeing these chords and thinking that seems like a lot, but I promise you it's really not a lot. We're in the key of C minor, and what I'm doing here is I'm using the C minor triad, and I'm adding a 7th and I'm adding a 9th to it to make these chords. And these are more fuller sounding chords when you use these type of chords, and they got more of a soulful feel. And the reason I think that is because if you take this note and let's just bring them down an octave, it puts them right next to other notes. So you can see the D flat, or the D is right next to the E flat, and the B flat and the C are really close to each other in the scale as well. So that builds up a lot of tension. Even though they're far away from each other, it still builds up that tension in the chord. Like I said, I'm building the triad, then I'm skipping one in the scale, and I'm going to the next note, which is, so we'll skip G and we'll go to B flat, and then we'll skip C and we'll go to D, and that's going to give us that ninth, that minor ninth. What I did next to it is I just copied the notes over and I shortened them, and these are the exact same notes here. If I bring these over, you'll see that they are exact same notes. And they're just shorter, and it gives it like that stopping kind of feel to go with it. And above, I actually repeated the exact same chord. So if I bring these down 2 octaves, you see that this is the exact same chord. It's just been strummed out. And of course, I worked on the volume or the dynamics of it too. You can't see it here, but I'll bring it up. You see here the dynamics of it. And I did it with all of it. They do have different dynamics here. And then the root note is just the bass note down here. So if I was to highlight this and bring it up 1 octave, it's the exact same root note. Before I built this walk up here, I actually took this same chord and I duplicated it and I put it here. And then I brought it down 5 semitones. So we hold shift and then we count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's the exact same thing. It's a minor 9th chord, but this minor 9th chord is a G minor 9th chord. I also did the same thing with this chord here. This, if I brought it down 2 octaves, is the exact same chord below, but it's just strummed out. And of course the dynamics is a little bit different on it. And I did the same little short stop here, but I only did 1 here. This is the exact same chord. If I was to move this over, you see that these are exact same notes here. And then the next one, I gave it a different pattern, so it kind of changed up a little bit. But the next one is the exact same chord, but what I did was I made it a major. So if I take this here, a major 9th chord, I'm sorry. So if I take this over here, and let's bring it up 1, then we'll take the B here, and we'll take the G here, and or the G flat, I'm sorry, and we'll move them up 1, and it puts it in the key, and it's the right notes in the scale. And now what we're looking at is an A flat major chord. And then the next chord in the scale is going to be this E flat major. This is actually a E flat major 7th chord, and then I just added the root note at the top, and then I added one at the bottom. And this isn't far-fetched. If you take this chord right here, this part of this chord, and just move it over, you get that same E flat triad, and then we add our 7th right here at the top by skipping 1. And then the next one is just a couple of D's repeated with a B flat stuck in there. To be honest with you, I was just playing around to try to find a sound that sounded good with it, and that's just what sounded good. But anyway, I'll let you hear what that sounds like. Now with the processing, it's just literally the EQ kind of dropping out some of the, or taking out some of that low end. I boosted up a little bit of the warmth, and I wanted to bring up some of the presence in it as well. And then with the reverb, I just turned the wet knob all the way up, put a lot of decay on it, and brought the size up. And then I control how much I hear right here with this knob. And I do that a lot with a lot of my reverb and my EQ. I mean, not EQ, my reverb and my delay. And so this is what it sounds like. The next thing I did was I was struggling to decide if I wanted to use like a saxophone or another instrument, but in this one I just decided to go with the strings, and the strings can also be found in your pack. So if you go to packs, instruments, orchestral, and then go to string solo, which I actually started with the string section and I changed it to the string solo. It fit the vibe a lot better in my opinion. You'll find that it's also a direct wave, so we bring it up. Anyway, inside here, it's very, very simple. Nothing. It's not much going on in here. What we got is our G playing, and the reason I chose G is also the fifth of the C minor chord. So we got the C minor chord. You have C, E flat, and G. I just chose the fifth of that chord, and I laid those down, and then I kept that going here. Right here, see it's a G again. And the next one, we go up in the scale and to the B flat. And if you look at the G minor chord, B flat is actually the third of that chord. So if we was to build it, because the next chord in the progression is the G. So we got G, B, and D to make our chord here. And I just use that. And then as you can see here, the next note is the D, and D is also the fifth of that G. And then I just repeated the exact same thing here. Now the processing on this is very simple as well. I threw some reverb on it, and then I used this new plugin that we have in FL Studio. It's called Spreader, and it is now native. Well, it is native to FL Studio. If you upgrade or update your FL to FL24, then you should have this in your plugins. And this is what it sounds like. The next thing I did was I added this bass, and this bass is called Temptated. In one of my videos, I was calling it Tempted, but that's neither here nor there. This is a really, really good bass that a lot of people sleep on. This is also a direct wave. So if you go to your packs, your instruments, bass, it's the last bass here in your list there. Now, I did have to do a little bit of processing to it as well, but not very much with this one. But I'll go ahead and show you what I got going on here. I'm really just using notes, root notes, and just kind of building off of that. So if I was to take this here, let's just copy it, and I'm just gonna drop that in like this, and let's just bring it down an octave so you can see. If you can see here, I'm using notes that are already in the scale, or that I'm already using. So the root note here is the C, the root note here is the G, and then of course the A, the E flat, and then I got some slides going on as well. So if we bring this up back to where it goes, a lot of these filler notes are notes that are already being used in the chord. This A isn't being used in the chord anywhere, but it fit in that place. And then I got these little slide notes here too, and I'll let you hear what those sound like. But it's not much going on as far as the bass goes. It's really following what's going on with the piano. See how this note and this note is the exact same note, just brought up, an octave. G is the root note here. So if I was to take this and bring it down, we're using the root note. And then we're using some notes with inside that chord. So like the D and the F are already in that chord. And then the A here, if I bring this down an octave, where it's the root here. And then E flat is also the root here. So if I was to bring this up an octave, you'll see that we're just covering up a root note. And then D is actually the root here. And I got it sliding down to C because C it goes back to the beginning of the progression. Now with the bass, what I did was, as far as processing goes, it wasn't much at all. I threw on this parametric EQ, kind of boosted up some of the lows here, boosted up some of the low mids, boosted up some of the presence in it, and then I threw on this fast distortion just to kind of give it a saturated sound. Now that distortion is also blended in just a little bit. It's not fully through, or it's not fully coming through. It's just enough to so you can feel it. Also, before I even let you hear that, something that's important is with this, you got to really pay attention to your dynamics, because the louder a note is, the more slappish it sounds, if I do say so myself. But this is what it sounds like. The next thing I did, which is almost done, like I didn't do too much to this. The next thing I did was I added this guitar, and this guitar is really an acoustic guitar. It is also a direct wave, and you can also find it in the exact same place. Packs, instruments, go to guitars, and you go to acoustic. Now, you do have some electric guitars, but I made this sound electric using the plug-in, and I'll talk more about that as we go through here. But I'm using the classical acoustic, which is what this is, a direct wave, so you should have it as well. And what I'm doing inside here is really, I was just kind of, I can't really explain what I was doing. I was playing it on the keys, and I was just trying to play around with it until I found something that sounded good. And normally I will do a pitch bend, which I did do a pitch bend here, but I actually did it manually inside the control here. So if you go to channel pitch, you can go here to channel pitch. I actually manually controlled it, but there's also a way, and I'll put in the description, or I'll put in the video somewhere where you can see a video where I explain how to do this using your MIDI controller. But you can also automate or link this to a knob, and you can use it to also pitch bend. But since I wasn't pitch bending it when I was making it, I didn't link it to the controller. But that's what I did here. I did pitch bend it, but I did it manually 2 times here. I did it right here, and I also did it right here. And I'm hitting the wrong note on purpose here so I can actually pitch bend up to the note that I want to hear. And this is what it sounds like when you do that. You get that pitch bend effect like it's actually being played. But anyway, I'm just basically walking up the scale here. C, E flat, F, and then back down here just to kind of add a little bit of sauce to it. Doing the exact same thing here, like it's just copied over, but I'm just using a different note here at the top. Instead of using the F, I'm using the A flat, and the A flat slides up to a B flat. So this F slides up to a G, and the A flat slides up to a B flat, and or by slide I mean pitch bend. There's not much going on, but once we get into the processing here, I did put on one EQ at first, brought out a lot of the low end, and then I boosted up just a little bit in the mids to high mids, and after that I used hardcore. Now here's the thing about hardcore: most editions of FL Studio do not already have hardcore in it. You have to have, I want to say, I know for a fact that with the all plugins edition, you have hardcore. I don't really know if it's in any of the other editions, but if you don't have hardcore, you can always use something like fast distortion. You can use chorus, you can use an EQ, and a reverb. These are all things that you have separately in FL Studio that you can use to actually emulate this sound. This plugin just has them all together. And I'm using the preset here, which is clean, ballot clean FG. I don't know what the FG stands for, but that's what I'm using. It's got some reverb on it. It's got a little bit of chorus, and it's got a little bit of EQ or equalizer, whatever you want to call it. It's how we get it to sound the way that it sounds. So without this being on, it sounds pretty acoustic like. And you can also barely hear it. But if you turn that hardcore on, and you got the fruity parametric EQ, just kind of boosting some and taking out some here, taking out some of the lows, taking out some of that low mid, boosting up the mids here, and taking out a little bit of the high mids. And then I threw on a fruity delay, and of course I blended it in this way. I have that wet knob all the way up, and I have that dry knob turned down for the most part. Did a little offset to it, and then I did a little bit of the level by bringing it down so it doesn't go too long. This is what that sounds like. And the last thing I did was I found these wah is what I'm calling it. And I'm pretty sure I got this off of the cloud here. And it's right here before any of the processing. I think all I did was I recorded it into Edison. I didn't drag it out. I don't have the cloud here per se. So I just recorded into Edison, and then I have the process here, or the loop itself here, and I just placed that in an empty space, or a space that didn't have much going on. The only thing that's really going on there is a little bit of the bass, and then of course that high chord on the electric piano part. But I put them two of them in there, and with the processing, it's not much going on here either. It's got a little bit of fruity parametric EQ, dropping out some of that low end. I also did another reverb, and I made it pretty big, pretty wide, good big decay, and then I got the delay set to 4 here, ping pong. I brought the level down, and of course I got the wet all the way up, and I got the dry most of the way down. And of course, like always, I'm using this knob to blend it all in, and this is what it sounds like by itself. Now, something that you could do is you could take like a drum loop. I'm not going to put any drums on this right this moment, but I will use this drum loop to kind of give you an example of what the drums could sound like depending on what you use. So this is a drum loop from my Cymatics. One of these, I don't know where I just got this from. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Let's add a different drum loop. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go with this. You can go West Coast with it. You can go kind of like old school R&B with it. Just pretty much what you want to do with it. You will be able to find this in my next loop kit. But as far as this goes, that's all that I did with this. Making it sound vintage is really about the instruments that you use. I say using strings and electrics, using not 808s, maybe like a bass guitar or something like that. It's going to give it that real vintage kind of sound to it. And using the wah effect, that also really helps. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you like videos like this, you want to see me make more videos like this, you want to see me make some from scratch, I'll do that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Just make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you turn on that notification bell so you know whenever I post another video. See you in the next one.